Where did you get this money, Williams? The bills hit the steel table and scattered, soft paper snapping against metal, then settling in a neat, accusing fan. The sound was dry and intimate, like someone rubbing leaves together in winter. A red camera eye blinked in the corner, steady as a heartbeat. Above, the fluorescent light buzzed, thin and mean, and the vent pushed cold air that smelled like disinfectant. Marcus did not flinch. He kept his hands flat, palms down, fingers spread, like he was pinning himself to the truth. His jacket cuff was frayed, and a faint smear of diner grease darkened the fabric, a stain that did not belong in a room this clean. "It is not mine," Marcus said. "I came to return it." The younger guard scoffed, leaning back as if the answer entertained him. The older guard stayed still, eyes scanning Marcus the way a scanner reads a barcode, searching for the lie it expected to find. "Nobody walks into Barrett Technologies with $1,000, the older guard said. Not without an angle. Marcus's jaw tightened. His tongue tasted like burnt coffee, the kind that sat too long on a warmer. He thought of the diner for half a beat, not as memory, but as smell and sound. A quick cut, Uncle Ray in the recliner, the television on mute, his breathing wet and shallow in the dark. A quick cut, an empty pill bottle clicking against the kitchen table. A quick cut, an eviction notice with a red circle around a date that felt like a fist. Marcus blinked once, hard, and the interrogation room snapped back into focus. "Empty your pockets," the older guard said. Marcus moved slowly, deliberate. Fast hands were guilty hands. His phone hit the table first with a heavy thud. Screen spider cracked. His wallet followed. Then his keys, rusted ring rattling like a cheap wind chime. His work badge slapped down last, laminated, bent, the clip worn thin. The younger guard nudged the badge with 2 fingers and read it out loud. "Miller's Roadside Diner," he said, like it was a punchline. "So you are a server." Marcus kept his eyes level. The steel under his palms was cold enough to numb his skin. The older guard picked up Marcus's phone without asking and woke it. The lock screen lit up with missed calls and unread texts, names replaced by numbers, the kind that never stopped calling. The older guard's mouth twitched, just once. "Debt collectors," Marcus said, before they could turn it into something worse. The younger guard's smile sharpened. "Figures. People like you do not walk away from money," the older guard said. Calm, certain. The words landed and stayed. Marcus felt heat climb behind his eyes, the familiar burn of being judged before he finished speaking. His fingers curled against the edge of the table until the nails pressed white into his skin. He forced them open again, forced his breathing to remain even, forced his voice to stay quiet. "I did not walk away," Marcus said. "I brought it back." A plain envelope sat near the bills, one corner stained with coffee and fryer grease, absurdly out of place on corporate steel. The paper carried the faint smell of burnt diner air, like oil and cheap soap. The older guard dragged it closer with 2 fingers. "You brought this into our lobby," he said. "No appointment, no escort. You refused to leave." "Because your receptionist would not listen," Marcus said. The younger guard leaned in, eyes bright with suspicion. "And why should she?" The camera blinked red again, once, twice, as if counting. "Open it," Marcus said, nodding toward the envelope. The older guard tore the flap carefully. The paper gave a soft rip that sounded too loud in the sterile room. He pulled out the bills and began to count with a practiced thumb. The money whispered as it moved, dry and crisp, each note sliding off the next with a sound that felt almost obscene in its closeness. Marcus's heartbeat tried to match the rhythm, then outpaced it. The older guard stacked the bills neatly, then reached back into the envelope and drew out a thin receipt, curled at the edges, smudged where fingers had held it too long. He turned it over. Marcus watched the guard's face like it was a screen. He did not need big reactions. He needed the small ones. The older guard's pupils tightened. His lower eyelid twitched. His thumb tapped once against the receipt, then again, a tiny metronome he did not seem aware of. The younger guard craned to see, smirk fading as if it had been wiped off. His throat bobbed once, and his eyes flicked from the handwriting to Marcus, then away like looking too long might admit something. "You wrote this," the older guard said. "Yes." "Why?" Marcus did not give them a speech. He did not beg. He did not explain his life to men who had already decided what he was. He let the answer stay simple, because simple was harder to twist. "Because I know what it costs when no one returns what is not theirs," Marcus said. The older guard stared at him for a long moment, as if the sentence did not belong in a mouth like Marcus's. He set the receipt down beside the money and aligned both, careful, like evidence on a line. "Williams," he said again, slower now. The name carried a new weight in his mouth, like it had snagged on something he did not want to touch. The younger guard shifted in his chair, suddenly aware of the room, the blinking red light, the sealed door. He glanced toward the handle as if he could already hear what was coming. The older guard stood. His boots made a clean sound on the floor. He walked to the door and placed his hand on the lock, then paused, letting the pause stretch until it felt like a warning. "Mr. Barrett is on his way down," he said. Marcus did not move. His gaze stayed on the stack of money, on the receipt, on the greasy stain that proved the envelope came from a world that smelled like oil and burnt coffee, not glass and steel. The lock clicked. The sound cut through the room like a decision that could not be undone. The camera blinked red again, and outside the door, footsteps approached with steady, expensive purpose, the kind that never hurried because the world always moved out of its way. Richard Barrett entered like he owned the oxygen, calm, precise, inevitable. The door closed behind him, and the fluorescent buzz sharpened. The vent hissed colder, louder, as if the room had leaned closer. The red camera blinked, patient, recording. Barrett's eyes went straight to the table, to the fan of bills, to the curled receipt. He did not look at Marcus first. He looked at the paper, like it was a voice he recognized. His hand hovered above it. Then it trembled. Not a dramatic shake, not weakness, a fine vibration at the fingertips, a billionaire's hand betraying him over a greasy diner receipt. The guards shifted to speak. Barrett lifted one hand, and their words died. "Leave us," Barrett said. The older guard hesitated, pride tightening his jaw, then swallowed it. Boots retreated. The door shut. The silence felt like a lock. Barrett sat across from Marcus without asking. The chair scraped thinly. The vent hissed again, rising a notch as Barrett's fingers touched the receipt. The paper crackled, dry and stiff at the edges. "You wrote this," Barrett said. "Yes." Barrett read the line again, slowly, thumb smoothing the curled corner. His tremor synced with the vent's hiss, small, relentless. "Why bring it back?" he asked, when no one would have known. Marcus kept his hands flat, palms down, fingers spread. The steel under him was cold enough to numb, because it was not mine. Barrett's mouth tightened. "That is the moral answer," he said. "Give me the real one." Marcus did not blink. He watched the tremor, the sleepless dark under Barrett's eyes, the suit that could not hide a cracked conscience. "The real one is, I cannot afford to pretend it is mine," Marcus said. Barrett exhaled heavy, the kind of breath that sounded like stepping to an edge. He set the receipt down with unnatural care, aligning it beside the bills like he needed straight lines to keep himself from splintering. "How old are you?" Barrett asked. 23. Barrett's gaze sharpened, then shifted. A calculation moved behind his eyes. His throat worked once, hard. "Your last name is Williams," he said, quieter now. "Yes." Barrett held Marcus's gaze for a beat, then looked down again, as if he could delay what he already felt reaching for him. "What was your father's name?" Barrett asked. Marcus felt the name tighten around his ribs. He said it anyway, because it was the only truth he owned. "David Williams." The room changed. Barrett went still. The tremor stopped for one sharp second, then returned worse, like his body had finally admitted what his mind refused. The vent hissed louder, and the fluorescent buzz seemed to crawl into the silence. "Say it again," Barrett said. "David Williams." Barrett stared at Marcus, like Marcus had become evidence that should not exist. "No," Barrett said, and it sounded like fear. "That is not possible." Marcus leaned forward slightly. "He disappeared when I was 11. Barrett's eyes flicked to the receipt, to the sentence on the back, and his thumb tapped the paper once, then again, a nervous metronome he could not stop. 12 years? Barrett whispered. Marcus's fingers tightened on the table edge. "You knew him." Barrett did not deny it. He reached down, pulled a thick folder from beneath the guard paperwork, and slid it across the table toward Marcus. The folder was stamped in heavy black ink, case closed. Beneath it, printed clean and corporate, David Williams. Marcus stared at the stamp, then opened it. Paper hissed under his fingers, crisp and old. A photocopied badge card slipped loose and slid onto the steel with a soft slap. A black and white photo of David Williams stared up. Younger, tired, eyes steady, the kind of gaze that did not beg. Marcus's chair shoved back so hard it shrieked across the tile, a brutal sound that cut through the room like a blade. The camera blinked red. The vent hissed harder, as if the air itself startled. Marcus stared at the photo, then at Barrett. "You erased him," Marcus said, flat, deadly. Barrett flinched. His trembling hand curled into a fist, then loosened again like it could not decide what punishment it deserved. "He brought me proof," Barrett said, forcing the words out. "Shell accounts, fake subsidiaries. Money routed through the same approvals, again and again. He told me if I signed a certain document, I would be burying it." Marcus flipped pages. The paper crackled, crisp, accusing. A resignation letter, dated 3 days later. A settlement authorization form. Barrett's signature sat there in dark ink, steady, confident, like the hand that signed it had never trembled. Marcus's vision sharpened. "And then he vanished," Marcus said. Barrett's jaw tightened. The company announced he resigned. Moved overseas. Case closed. Marcus turned another page. A security incident report, sterile and short. His eyes locked on one line, printed like a weapon. Concern for mental stability. The words made his stomach drop, made his skin go hot. "They made him insane on paper," Marcus said. Barrett's eyes lowered. "Doing nothing was the same as choosing it," he said, hoarse. Silence pressed in. The vent hissed. The receipt crackled faintly as Marcus's thumb brushed it without meaning to. The money sat between them, untouched. Survival turned into bait. "Why are you here?" Marcus asked, and his voice stayed steady only because he refused to break for Barrett. "Because you walked into my building with money you could have kept," Barrett said, "and you brought back a sentence I have been trying not to hear for 12 years. His fingers hovered over the receipt again, trembling. "My board is restless. My executives are nervous. Someone is leaking to Meridian Capital. Someone is moving money again. Clean enough to survive audits. Dirty enough to destroy me if it surfaces. And they know I am close." Marcus's laugh was short, bitter. "So you drag in the poor server?" Barrett held his gaze. "Everyone who matters in this building has something to lose. That makes them predictable. You are invisible to them. They do not guard their words around you. They will not suspect you. Invisible." The word landed where it hurt because it was true. "Help me," Barrett said, quieter now, and the tremor turned power into something raw. "Help me find proof that cannot be erased. Help me finish what your father started." Marcus looked down at the old badge photo, then at the money, then at Barrett's signature on the lie. The choice pressed into his chest like two hands fighting over the same throat. "If I say yes," Marcus said, "when the truth comes out, does your name come out with it?" Barrett's chest rose. Then he drew in a deep breath, audible, deliberate, like a man preparing to step off a ledge. The vent hissed. The fluorescent buzz pressed down. The camera blinked red like a countdown. Barrett nodded, slow, final. "Yes," he said, "including mine." Marcus stared at him for a beat, then reached down, took the old badge card, and slid it into the inside pocket of his jacket, over his heart. The plastic edge tapped softly against fabric, a small sound that felt like a contract. "Not for you," Marcus said. "For him." The private elevator swallowed them with a soft seal, and the world outside turned into a muffled rumor. Mirrored walls multiplied Marcus into a row of the same man, same frayed cuffs, same jacket that still carried a faint fryer oil ghost no soap could fully erase. The floor beneath him was black stone, so polished it looked wet. Richard Barrett stood beside him like a clean cutout, suit perfect, jaw tight, fingers hovering near his pocket as if even his own hands made him uneasy. The elevator surged upward. A high, electrical hum pressed into Marcus's molars. His phone vibrated. Then it pinged, sharp and ugly, the kind of notification sound that never brought good news. In the mirror, Marcus saw the screen flash red for a fraction of a second as it shifted in his pocket, an overdraft warning bright enough to feel like a slap. One more buzz followed, a debt collector calling back-to-back like a metronome. Marcus didn't reach for it. He kept his hands still, fingers loose, breathing measured. The only thing that moved was his throat as he swallowed, slow. Richard noticed anyway. In the mirror, his eyes flicked to Marcus's pocket, then away, like looking too long would make it real. He reached into his inner jacket and produced a clear badge sleeve, rigid plastic catching the elevator light, clean edges, no fingerprints. He held it out. Marcus took it. The sleeve was cold, almost damp from air conditioning, and too pristine for someone who had been counting quarters on a diner counter 2 nights ago. The elevator chimed. The doors opened into a corridor where sound died on thick carpet. Glass walls revealed conference rooms laid out like exhibits, chairs aligned, screens asleep, water bottles untouched. The air smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and money. A security door waited ahead, card reader blinking green. Sarah Chun stood beside it with a tablet hugged to her ribs. Her suit was tailored, her ponytail tight, her expression sharp enough to cut glass. She didn't greet Marcus. She scanned him. "Name," she said. "Marcus." "Last name." He felt the word catch in his chest. Then he let it out like a controlled exhale. "Williams." Sarah's pupils tightened, a flicker so fast most people would miss it. Marcus didn't. His life had been built on noticing the moment someone decided what he was. Her tablet made a soft chirp. She glanced down, then back up. Her gaze dropped to Marcus's pocket as the phone vibrated again. "Put it on silent," she said. Marcus did not fumble. He slid 2 fingers into his pocket, muted the phone without looking, and pulled his hand out empty. Calm hands mattered more than calm words. Richard swiped his card. The reader beeped bright and clean. The lock clicked. Sarah didn't step aside yet. "Security flagged him," she said to Richard, voice flat. "You're bringing risk upstairs." "He stays with me," Richard replied. Sarah's eyes returned to Marcus. "Then, don't make me regret being the one who lets you through." As Marcus held her gaze. "I won't." The door swung open. The air on the other side felt colder, like the building saved its sharpest edge for the floors that mattered. Behind them, the door sealed with a deeper click, the sound of access becoming a trap. Richard's office sat at the corner of the top floor. Windows pulled the skyline into the room, towers glittering like they had never known hunger. Marcus had stared at those lights from bus stops and cracked apartment panes, from the diner window while wiping tables that were already clean. Up here, the city looked close enough to touch and still belonged to someone else. Richard gestured at a leather chair. "Sit." Marcus sat carefully, as if the chair might accuse him. The leather smelled sweet, polished, expensive, a scent that didn't belong near eviction notices and empty pill bottles. Sarah stayed standing, tablet in hand, eyes on Marcus like he was a variable. Richard slid a leather portfolio across the desk. The papers inside were crisp, edges sharp. Numbers marched in neat columns, sterile, confident. "Look," Richard said. Marcus leaned in. At first, it was noise. Then his survival brain found pattern, the way it found discounts and danger. A transfer amount repeated again and again, identical, like a fingerprint. 50,000, 50,000, 50,000. His index finger moved across the page, slow, deliberate. His nail dragged lightly over the paper, a dry whisper that sounded too loud in the quiet office. A code sat near an internal stamp, small type, easy to miss if you weren't trained to notice what people hoped you wouldn't. DW SecOps. Marcus's finger stopped. The vent above them hissed steadily, then stuttered, then fell silent for a beat. A sudden vacuum of sound opened in the room, loud in its emptiness. Marcus felt his heartbeat in his fingertips. Richard watched Marcus's face change. "What?" he asked. The word clipped. Marcus didn't point like a man begging to be believed. He slid his finger down the page and stopped on the code again, steady. "This repeats," Marcus said. Sarah's tablet chirped again. Her jaw tightened. "Board activity spiking," she said. And Patricia Sterling requested direct access. The name chilled the air, like the glass got thinner. Richard opened a drawer and slid a glossy badge card toward Marcus. The photo had been pulled from security footage, cleaned up by a camera that didn't care what he'd survived. The title beneath it was printed in hard, official letters. Personal assistant. Across the desk, a printer whirred, then rasped, spitting out a new badge sleeve. The mechanical scrape sounded like something being forged. The glossy card slid forward and landed on top of Marcus's old diner work card, bent and stained, like a polished heel on a throat. Marcus stared at the overlap for a half-second, then picked up the new badge, plastic cold against his skin. He snapped it into the sleeve. Click. The sound was final. Sarah stepped closer, and as she moved, her elbow brushed the portfolio again, not quite clumsy, too precise. Something slipped free from inside and dropped onto the desk. Tap. An old employee badge. Corners scuffed. Photo grainy, the kind of card that lived in drawers until someone needed a story buried. David Williams. For one beat, Marcus's lungs forgot how to work. A ghost flash hit behind his eyes, fast and brutal. A red eviction stamp. A pill bottle rolling under a chair. Uncle Ray coughing in the dark, wet and thin. Marcus did not reach for the badge. Sarah watched him, waiting for the fracture, waiting for a reaction that would prove he could be led by emotion. The silence stretched. The vent hiss did not return. Marcus picked up the financial page instead, slid it gently over the old badge, covering the name like a shield, not a claim. His movements were careful, quiet, controlled. Then he looked at Sarah. "Is that part of the audit?" he asked. Sarah's eyes narrowed, then softened by a fraction, a respect she didn't want to admit. Her fingers tapped once against the tablet, a nervous tick disguised as patience. Richard's hand trembled as he poured scotch. Ice clinked once, sharp against the quiet, the sound of wealth trying to steady itself. Marcus slid the new badge into his jacket. His hand went to his chest pocket. He felt hard paper there, felt the corner of the stained diner receipt, felt it press like a bruise over his heart. He fastened the top button of his worn jacket, slow and deliberate, sealing himself in like armor. In the window reflection, he looked at his own eyes for one last second, not asking who he was, deciding. A rhythm approached down the corridor. Heels on marble, crisp and confident, growing louder with every step. The elevator chime sounded faint through the walls. The heel clicks stopped at the door. A hand touched the handle. The lock clicked. Patricia Sterling entered like the room belonged to her lungs. Her heels stopped at the threshold, not from hesitation but from control. The silence swelled around that pause, and the air felt thinner, sharper. Then she stepped in, slow, precise, and the door closed behind her with a clean click that sounded final. No one spoke. Patricia let her eyes travel. Richard first, then Sarah, then Marcus. When she reached Marcus, she did not look away. She held him there, measuring the dust on his jacket, the diner grease ground into the seams, the way he stood too still for a man who should be afraid. Richard tried to shape his voice into authority. "Patricia." Patricia answered gently, almost kind. "Richard, you look tired." She did not sit. She moved along the desk as if inspecting a patient, checking what could still be saved. Her gaze slid to the scotch glass, to the softened ice, to the thin ring of water on the wood. She stored the detail without comment. Then she looked at Marcus again. "And who is this?" Marcus rose, not hurried, not defiant, just correct. He held the badge sleeve in his hand, his thumb resting on its edge like a safety catch. He kept his face calm, but his attention sharpened, because everything about her was a test disguised as politeness. Richard answered too quickly. "My personal assistant." Patricia blinked once. Slow. "Since when do you hire outside the pipeline?" Sarah's tablet made a soft chime. She silenced it instantly. Patricia did not glance at the sound, but her mouth shifted by a fraction. She heard everything. Marcus extended the badge sleeve. Patricia did not take it right away. She let it hover between them for a beat, like a hand offered and denied. Then she pinched it between two perfect fingers, the kind of pinch used for something unpleasant. A macro moment, nails immaculate, skin unwrinkled, plastic cheap in her grip. Her eyes moved over the photo, the title, the expiration, then up to Marcus's face. "Williams," she said, like tasting the word. That is an interesting name to appear on my floor. Marcus held her gaze. It is my name. Patricia tapped the badge back into his palm, a light knock, as if returning a coin. The humiliation was small, surgical, and it landed harder because it was quiet. A name is rarely just a name, she said, and turned to Richard as if Marcus had served his purpose. Why am I here? Richard swallowed. There are irregularities, transfers that do not match internal authorization. Patricia smiled, controlled. Irregularities exist in every system. They are corrected quietly. Richard slid the portfolio forward, then stopped halfway, as if his hand could not bear to release it. The tremor in his fingers betrayed him. The ice in his glass clinked, a thin, nervous sound against the room's hush. Patricia did not reach for the portfolio at first. She looked past it, at Richard's face. Independent review, Richard said, forcing the words out. Clean review. Independent, Patricia repeated, amused. And you chose him? Marcus felt his phone buzz against his thigh, the same harsh vibration that carried the color of debt and deadlines. He did not move. He refused to give her the satisfaction of catching him. Patricia's eyes flicked toward his pocket anyway, a tiny dart of certainty, then returned to Richard. He is distracted, she said. You are frightened. This is not a review, Richard. This is panic. Richard's jaw tightened. This is risk management. Patricia stepped closer, and the scent of her perfume arrived before her voice did clean florals over cold metal. She placed both hands on the desk. Her nails began to tap, 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 tap. Not impatient, not random. A metronome. Each tap seemed to line up with the faint buzz Marcus was swallowing in his pocket, like she was conducting both noises at once. I built risk management, Patricia said calmly. I built the policies that keep this place from bleeding when men get sentimental. Sentimental landed like an insult. Marcus felt heat rise. Then he pressed it down, hard, the way you press a lid onto boiling water. He kept his breathing shallow and invisible. His stillness was his weapon, Patricia noticed. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not with anger, but with interest, like a predator recognizing discipline. Sarah spoke carefully. The transfers repeat. Same amount, same routing pattern, tagged under a security operations code. Patricia's head tilted. What code? Sarah hesitated, then said it. DW-SecOps. Patricia did not flinch, but the room did. Something behind her eyes went quiet and sharp, a brief freeze, like a screen that hangs for half a second before it loads. Then her expression returned to polished calm. Legacy labeling, Patricia said. Meaningless. Richard's throat worked. Meaningless, he echoed, but his voice cracked on it. Patricia finally touched the portfolio. She opened it, and her finger stopped on the page Marcus had marked earlier, as if she already knew where the wound was. Her fingertip traced the repeated numbers like a slow blade. Then she looked at Marcus. You noticed this, she said softly. Marcus kept his voice even. I read what is in front of me. Patricia's smile returned, thinner. And what else do you read? The air conditioner hissed. The fluorescent light made a faint electrical whine. The room felt like it was listening. Patricia turned toward the windows, the skyline reflecting across the glass, her face layered over the city as if she owned it. Here is what will happen, she said. You will hand this to internal compliance. You will stop pulling strangers into executive space. You will stop chasing ghosts. Richard's voice roughened. It is not a ghost. Patricia looked back, and her calm turned almost gentle. Everything you cannot control becomes a ghost to you. That is why you are dangerous when you are scared. Sarah swallowed. Marcus caught it, the smallest sign that even she felt the pressure. Patricia stepped toward Marcus again, close enough that the air between them felt private. What did Richard promise you? She asked quietly. Money, a title, a ladder out of whatever pit you climbed from. Marcus did not blink. He promised me access. Patricia's smile widened by a hair. Honest. Rare. She reached into her bag and placed a slim black phone on the desk, face down, like a chess piece set in the center of the board. She did not silence it. She did not apologize for it. She made the room adapt to her. If you want access, Patricia said, you learn the first rule up here. The truth is not what you find. The truth is what survives. Marcus held her gaze, then answered with a question that cut against her rhythm. Then tell me, he said, how did the truth from 12 years ago survive? For the first time, Patricia looked at him as an opponent. The tapping stopped. A beat of pure silence, loud enough to feel in the teeth. Then Patricia's phone buzzed, sharp, unapologetic, vibrating against the polished wood like a warning. Patricia's mouth softened into something almost satisfied. Good, she said. Now we can begin. The black phone vibrated, thump, thump, like a heartbeat that did not belong to any human in the room. It lay face down on Richard's desk, centered with surgical neatness, a silent order from Patricia Sterling. The office lights were too clean, too white, as if color itself had been banned. The vent above them hissed in a thin, steady line, then dipped for half a second when the phone buzzed again, like the building was listening. Richard Barrett did not sit. He stood behind his own chair, fingers hovering over the leather as if touching it would admit guilt. His expensive suit looked suddenly fragile on him. Sarah Chun watched everything through her lashes, tablet tucked under one arm, the other hand ready to move fast. Marcus stayed near the door, the place a man chooses when he does not trust the exits. His jacket still smelled faintly of fryer oil and cold rain. He kept his face calm, but his body held a quiet tension, the kind you see in people who have learned to survive by not reacting. The black phone buzzed again, deeper this time, a low vibration that pressed against the desk like a fist. Richard's throat worked. She left it here, he whispered. Sarah answered without turning her head. She left it here to make someone flip it. Face down means temptation. Fingerprints mean leverage. Richard's hand twitched toward the phone, reflexive, desperate. Marcus raised 2 fingers, just slightly. Not a threat, a command. Richard froze mid-reach. Sweat gathered at his temple. Do not touch it, Marcus said softly. If she wants your print, she can earn it in court. That line landed harder than any shout. The power in the room shifted, not with a bang, but with a click you could almost hear inside Richard's chest. Then Marcus's own phone buzzed in his pocket. Buzz, buzz, sharp and high, the sound of survival screaming through cheap plastic. It buzzed again, faster, more urgent, like a debt collector pounding on a door that was already splintering. Sarah's eyes dropped to Marcus's pocket for a fraction of a second, then snapped back to his face. She clocked the pressure. She clocked his control. Marcus pulled his phone out just enough to see it. The screen flashed red, negative balance, final notice, and the name of an app he hated because it always felt like a judge. He killed the screen instantly, as if turning it off could turn his life off. The black phone vibrated, thump, thump, while Marcus's phone threatened, buzz, buzz, 2 heartbeats, 2 worlds, power and poverty, fighting for the same air. Sarah finally moved. She woke her tablet, swiped, and a 3-dimensional building map bloomed on the screen. Red beams traced the camera fields like laser lines. Tiny icons pulsed where motion sensors lived. The security network looked less like technology and more like a living organism. One narrow strip of blue appeared between 2 red zones, blinking like a weak signal in a storm. Sarah tapped, zoomed in, and the blue strip sharpened. Service corridor behind executive dining, she said. No cameras for 6 seconds. Then you are back in the red. Richard let out a breath that tried to become a laugh. 6 seconds is nothing. Marcus leaned in, eyes scanning the path like he was reading a menu with prices he could not afford. 6 seconds is everything, he said, if you enter knowing exactly what you are stealing. The word stealing hung in the air. Bitter, accurate, dangerous. Marcus's phone buzzed again. This time a message slid onto the screen before he could stop it. Unknown number. Do not trust the billionaire. He erased your father twice. For one beat, Marcus did not breathe. The vent thinned. The lights seemed to sharpen. Even Sarah's thumb paused above the tablet. Marcus did not flinch outward. He did not give the room the satisfaction. He simply went still, so still it looked like control, but inside his mind the sentence rewrote the world. Erased your father twice. Richard's face drained so fast it looked unreal. He erased your father twice, he echoed, voice cracking, as if saying it out loud might summon the person who sent it. Who is texting you in my building? Marcus turned his phone face down in his palm, mirroring Patricia, but with a different reason. He was not setting a trap. He was refusing to be bait. Someone who wants me turning on the wrong person, Marcus said. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Or someone warning you that the wrong person is holding your leash. The elevator ding sounded outside, bright and polite, a sound designed to make rich people feel safe. It made Marcus think of cameras and smiles and knives behind glass. Sarah slid the tablet closer. She drew a line with her finger, the root glowing. You go from here to the dining doors, head down, shoulders loose, like staff. Cameras read faces first. Do not give them your face. Marcus's mouth almost curved, not humor, more like recognition. I have been invisible my whole life, he said. I know how to wear it. Richard swallowed, the sound loud in the quiet. Marcus, he began, then stopped. His pride was dying in front of them, and he did not know how to bury it. Marcus looked at the blue strip again. He pictured the corridor, the timing, the blind spot like a blink in a predator's eye. He reached up, buttoned his worn jacket in one smooth motion, armor over a badge that did not belong to him. He glanced into the reflective glass of the office wall and caught his own eyes, steady, tired, dangerous. He looked like a man about to walk into a furnace and pretend it was a hallway. Sarah's voice softened by a millimeter. When you step into the blue, you do not hesitate. 6 seconds is not a window. It is a trap that opens once. Marcus nodded once. Then he did something small that made Sarah's posture shift. He slid the old ID card he kept hidden, the one that belonged to a man erased, deeper into his inner pocket, right over his heart. Not sentiment, commitment. Richard watched, and his hands trembled harder. What are you taking? He asked, voice raw. Marcus did not look back. Only what survives, he said. Only what proves. He opened the office door. Cold hallway air hit his face, clean and sharp. Marble floors stretched out, glossy enough to reflect lies. The corridor was empty, but it was not quiet. He heard footsteps. Not random, not casual. Heels on marble, fast, accelerating, the rhythm of someone closing distance with confidence. Marcus stepped out anyway, head slightly lowered, shoulders loose, the posture of staff, the posture of prey that refuses to panic. As he passed a glass panel, he caught a reflection behind him. A security guard in a dark suit, turning his head, eyes narrowing, beginning to recognize that something did not belong. The guard's steps sped up. 1, 2, 3, closer, quicker, like a countdown that had started without permission. And somewhere ahead, faint but real, Marcus heard the soft electronic beep of a door unlocking, the sound of his 6 seconds waiting. The footsteps behind him accelerated again. Then the screen should go black, hard, abrupt, with nothing left but the sound of those steps closing in. The office door shut with a soft, expensive seal, the kind that promised privacy and delivered traps. Patricia Sterling's phone lay face down on the desk, black glass, no case, no fingerprints, no mercy. It did not ring. It vibrated, deep and slow, like a threat that did not need to raise its voice. Richard Barrett stood a full step away from it, hands open at his sides, as if he was afraid the device could bite. Marcus watched the phone, then watched Richard, then watched the reflection of both of them in the window, two men caught in a tower that belonged to neither. The phone vibrated again. Marcus lifted 2 fingers, not a gesture of peace, a command. Stop. Richard froze. His throat worked like he was swallowing something sharp. Do not touch it, Marcus said, voice flat. Richard tried to smile and failed. She leaves it here on purpose. Marcus leaned closer, not to the phone, to the desk surface, to the faint smudge where it had been placed. It was too clean. That was the point. Sarah Chun appeared in the doorway without a sound, tablet hugged to her chest, eyes moving like she was counting exits. She looked at the phone, then at Marcus. You got her out. For now, Marcus said. The phone pulsed again. In Marcus's pocket, his own phone answered with a high, angry buzz, a cheap sound that felt like humiliation. 2 vibrations, 2 worlds, power and survival, battling under his jacket. Sarah's gaze dropped to his pocket for half a second, then snapped away like she had never looked. Your time window is closing. Richard's voice cracked. There is a blind spot, a dead zone between cameras. 6 seconds, no more. It was built for maintenance access, for emergencies, for... He stopped and his eyes flicked to the phone for people like her. Marcus did not ask who built it. He already knew the answer would taste like guilt. Sarah stepped closer and tapped her tablet. A three-dimensional model of the building rose on the screen, glossy and unreal, corridors like veins, cameras like red eyes. Thin red lines swept back and forth, scanning, scanning, scanning. Then Sarah pinched the screen, zoomed in, and a narrow strip of green appeared between two red sweeps. This, she said, the green is not safety, it is absence. 6 seconds of absence. Marcus stared at it, and he could almost feel the air in that hallway, colder, quieter, hungry. On the tablet, the green strip blinked, and a ghostly timer appeared beside it, counting down in silence, as if the building itself was rehearsing his failure. Richard rubbed his thumb over the edge of his glass, ice clinking once, too loud. If you miss it, the system reacquires you. Face, badge, gate, all of it. Patricia's people will be on you before the elevator dings. Marcus's phone buzzed again, higher this time, sharper, like an insect inside cloth. A dead app notification, the kind that loved red numbers. He did not pull it out. He felt the vibration in his bones. Sarah's eyes softened for a fraction of a second, then went hard again. This is why she will win. She counts on you thinking about your life outside this building. Marcus swallowed and kept his face still. That was the trick. Never let the world see where it hurt. Richard stepped closer, lowering his voice like a confession. You cannot even trust me, Marcus. Not fully. Not when you are my last option. Marcus held his gaze. Then why pick me? Richard's lips parted, and he looked away like the truth was too bright. Because you returned money you needed? Because you are not for sale? Because you know how to be unseen? And because if Patricia catches you, she will not just ruin you, she will erase you. The office felt smaller. The air felt thinner. Marcus's phone vibrated again, and this time he did look. Just a glance, just enough to see a message preview that made his stomach drop. He erased your father twice. No name, no number he recognized, just the sentence, blunt as a knife. Marcus felt his body go cold, then hot, then steady, the way it did when a fight started and he could not afford fear. Richard saw his face change and whispered, "What is it?" Marcus slid the phone back into his pocket without answering. Sarah moved closer, reading Marcus without asking. Someone knows you are in motion. Richard's hands trembled. It could be Patricia. It could be anyone, Marcus cut in. That was the point. The black phone on the desk vibrated again, slow and heavy, like a heartbeat that belonged to the building. Sarah reached into her blazer and pulled out a slim earpiece, sterile plastic, and a tiny badge sleeve, the kind executives used so cameras could read them from a distance. Put this on, she said. When you walk, you do not run. When you speak, you do not explain. You do not look scared, and you do not look proud. You look busy. Marcus took the sleeve. It was glossy, too clean for his hands. He slipped his badge into it, and the title stared back at him like a costume. Then Sarah did something small, almost invisible. She opened a drawer, pulled out a laminated floor access map, and slid it across to him without touching his fingers. Marcus noticed the corner of the map had a code stamped in faint gray ink, internal, old, DW SecOps. His jaw tightened, just once. Richard saw it and flinched, as if the letters had slapped him. Do not say that out loud. Marcus did not. He did not need to. The letters sat in his mind like a locked door. Sarah turned the tablet toward Marcus again. Your entry point is the service corridor by the west stairwell. The cameras sweep every 6 seconds. You step on the blue tape line, the dead zone begins. You leave the dead zone, you are visible again. Marcus nodded. Richard tried to speak, then stopped, and his eyes went to Marcus's pocket. The message. It is true, he said quietly, like he was admitting to murder without using the word. They did it. They wrote him into a report. Unstable, unreliable, a liability. Then they closed the case. Then they buried the rest. Marcus's fingers flexed. He felt the urge to break something. A glass, a jaw, the whole polished room. Instead, He reached to his jacket and buttoned it, slow, deliberate, armor snapping into place with a soft fabric rasp. He lifted his eyes to Sarah. "Where do I go?" Sarah answered without blinking. "Into the green. Into the part of the building that does not exist." Marcus turned to the door. Behind him, Richard's voice cracked one last time. "If you see her, people, if you hear her name, you turn back." Marcus paused at the threshold, not looking back, because looking back was weakness. "I know how to look invisible," he said. He stepped into the corridor. The office door sealed again, silent. In the hallway, the light changed, colder, harsher. The building hummed around him, a living machine. Marcus walked, steady, not fast, not slow, and the glossy badge on his chest caught the light like a target. Then, from somewhere behind him, a new sound began. Footsteps, not heels, not a secretary's click, a guard's pace, accelerating, purposeful, closing the distance like a countdown you could hear. Marcus did not run. He kept walking. And the black phone in Richard's office vibrated again, alone on the desk as if it was laughing. The lock clicked behind Marcus, soft at first, then final, like a thought you could not take back. The corridor outside was still blue and sterile, but the air on this side of the door was different, older, dustier, carrying the faint, dry scent of paper that had been touched by nervous hands. The building's polished hum vanished. No server roar, no clean ventilation hiss, just a thick, quiet, as if time had been sealed in here and forgotten. A desk lamp snapped on. Not overhead, not fluorescent. One warm circle of light, grainy around the edges, like an old film reel trying to run in a modern machine. Marcus stepped into the circle, and the room revealed itself in fragments. A rotary phone on the desk, beige, scratched, its cord curled like a sleeping snake. A cassette recorder beside it, the kind that ate secrets and spit them back as static. A filing cabinet with dents, a corkboard with pale outlines where documents used to be. The walls looked tired, not painted, but stained by years of being ignored. His badge caught the lamp and flashed once, too clean for this place. Then he saw the folder, placed perfectly in the center of the light, as if the lamp was built for it. Case closed. The stamp was crooked. The ink bled slightly. Human error in a world that pretended everything was precise. Marcus did not touch it yet. He looked at the chair. It sat just beyond the lamp's edge, angled away, the posture of someone who refused to look like they were waiting. "Come in, Williams," the voice said, calm, close, unhurried. Not a threat, not a greeting, a verdict. Marcus felt his stomach tighten, not with fear, with recognition. People only said your name like that when they owned a file on you. He took one step forward. His boot scraped concrete, and the sound seemed louder than it should have been. He let his eyes adjust, and the chair turned, slowly, controlled, the wood creaking like it was remembering. A man sat there. He was worn in a quiet way, like someone who had spent years holding his breath. His suit was not expensive, just clean, dark, anonymous. His face lived in the shadows except for his eyes, which caught the lamp and held it without flinching. His right hand rested on the arm of the chair. It tremored, small and precise, as if the shaking had learned manners. Marcus's throat went dry. He hated how his body noticed that detail before his mind could. The man watched him, not like a predator, more like a doctor watching a patient lie about pain. "Who are you?" Marcus asked. The man's gaze dropped briefly, to the name on Marcus's badge, then to Marcus's chest, as if he already knew what Marcus kept there. "Someone who never signed the last page," the man said. "Someone who refused to forget the first page." He leaned forward into the light, just enough for Marcus to see the faint line of an old scar at his hairline, the kind you got from hitting a corner in the dark. Marcus swallowed. "You called me Williams." The man's mouth twitched, almost a laugh, but the sound never came. "They always keep the name," he said. "It is easier to track a ghost if you label it." Marcus's fingers curled, then relaxed. "Say why I am here." The man reached into the light, two fingers tapping the folder. Tap, 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 each tap sharp, dry, like nails on glass. The sound made Marcus's teeth want to grind. "Because you came for evidence." the man said softly. Here is evidence that does not live on a server. Paper has a longer memory. Marcus finally touched the folder. The cardboard was rough, edges frayed, like it had been carried too many times and never opened in daylight. When he lifted the cover, the paper smell rose up, intimate and cruel, and the lamp made the pages look slightly yellow, like old photographs. He read the first header. Security Incident Report. His eyes slid down the page, and the room seemed to narrow until it was just him and ink. Then the phrase hit him, underlined in faded red pen. Concern for mental stability. Marcus stared at it so long he stopped blinking. His chest went tight, not with sadness, with anger that had nowhere to go. He turned the page. A photograph slipped out, slid across the paper with a soft rasp, and fell into the lamp's circle face up. Black and white, badge style, grainy. A man staring straight at the camera, jaw set, eyes tired, but alive. A face that felt familiar in a way Marcus had spent his whole life refusing to name. Marcus's breath stopped. His hand hovered over the photo, and as he reached for it, the lamp caught his fingers. A small tremor ran through them, quick, involuntary, gone in an instant. Marcus froze, staring at his own hand like it belonged to someone else. The man in the chair watched that, and something in his eyes softened, then hardened again, as if sympathy was a luxury he could not afford. There it is, the man murmured. You feel it too. Marcus closed his fist, forcing stillness. Do not, he said, voice low. The man did not flinch. Say his name, Marcus demanded, barely above a whisper. The room went dead quiet. No music, no hum, no comfort. The man took a slow inhale, deep enough that Marcus heard it, a real human sound, and when he spoke, it landed like a weight. David. Marcus's throat tightened. The photo blurred for a second, then sharpened again. He set his fingertips on the edge of the picture like it might burn him. David Williams. Marcus wanted to say father, but the word stuck behind his teeth. He flipped another page, hands steady by force. A code stamped in the margins, repeated like a signature. DW Sec Ops. Marcus's pulse jumped. The code was not just a label, it was a cage. He looked up. What is this place? The man's gaze slid past Marcus, toward the dark doorway, as if he could see the hallway, the cameras, the people moving through them like blood through veins. A room they buried, the man said. A room your father built before they decided he was dangerous. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Dangerous for what? The man leaned forward, and for the first time his tremor worsened. Then he pinned his hand flat on the desk, forcing it still with sheer will. For proving the money was dirty, he said. For tracing it back to the names nobody touches. For writing the truth down where it could survive. Marcus's jaw tightened. Who did this to him? The man's eyes stayed on Marcus, steady, unblinking. If I say the name, you will run at it and you will die in the hallway, he said. That is what they want. They want you loud. They want you sloppy. Marcus's breath came shallow. Then why bring me? Because you already walked into the blind spot like you belonged there, the man said. Because someone is hunting you right now, and I am the only reason the hunt has not ended. As if on cue, a faint sound crawled through the walls. A radio squawk, muffled, then another, closer. Boots on concrete, stopping, starting. A key ring jangled once, metal whispering. Marcus's eyes flicked to the door. The handle did not move yet, but Marcus could feel the pressure on it, the invisible hand on the other side. The man reached under the desk and pulled out a cassette recorder, old and solid, and set it beside the photo. He pressed a button. A tiny red light blinked on, steady, undeniable. The air filled with the faintest tape hiss, a thin thread of sound that made the silence feel even louder. Now, Williams, the man said, voice almost gentle, you choose. You can step back into the clean world and pretend this room never opened for you, or you can stay in the dirt long enough to learn what it costs to keep the truth breathing. The boots outside accelerated. The door handle twitched, just slightly, testing. Marcus stared at the blinking red light. Then the photo, then the line about mental stability, the kind of lie that killed you twice, once in public, once in private. He picked up the photo. The lamp lit his fingers again, and the tremor tried to return. Marcus slid the picture into the inside pocket of his jacket, pressed it flat over his heart, then buttoned the jacket with one sharp motion, armor snapping into place. The handle turned again, harder. The man leaned back into the shadows, calm returning like a mask. "Good," he whispered, "because they are here." The door did not explode. It failed with a sudden, violent dignity, the lock giving up in one sharp crack that made the lamp tremble. Marcus shifted his weight without thinking, shoulders squaring, 1 foot half a step back, ready for whatever came through. The man in the chair stayed still, like a person who had learned long ago that panic only feeds the room. The handle slammed down again. Then the door swung inward, hard. A figure filled the frame, not bulky, not armored, not a guard with a radio and an excuse. Sarah Chun. Her hair was pinned too neatly for a sprint, but her breathing said she had been moving fast. She did not look at Marcus first. She looked at the man in the shadows, like she was confirming he was real. In her hand was a phone. Not Marcus's cracked screen, not a glossy new toy, a black slab that seemed heavier than it should be, face down in her palm like a secret pressed against skin. Sarah stepped inside and closed the door behind her, softly, deliberately, as if she did not want the hallway to hear the room breathe. Marcus's eyes narrowed. "You came alone." Sarah's gaze flicked to him, quick, assessing, then away again. "Alone is relative," she said. She crossed to the desk, set the phone down in the lamp's circle, and flipped it over. The screen was awake. A call timer ran silently. No ringtone, no vibration, just a live line that had been open the entire time, like an ear held to a wall. The man's tremoring hand tightened on the chair arm. His voice stayed level. "You brought it here." Sarah nodded once. "She is listening," she said. She wanted to know if the witness still existed, or if he was another file that could be closed. Marcus felt a cold line slide down his spine. Witness. That word made the room smaller. The cassette recorder's red light blinked steadily on the desk, patient and hungry. Sarah saw it, and something like relief flashed across her face, then vanished. "Good," she murmured, barely moving her lips. "Keep it running." Marcus stared at her. "Why are you doing this?" Sarah's eyes sharpened, and for a beat her composure thinned, revealing something human underneath. "Because I read what they wrote about him," she said, "and then they asked me to sign the same lie. I did not." The man in the shadows exhaled slowly, as if the air finally had somewhere to go. "They sent you," he said, to bring her a voice. Sarah did not deny it. "I was supposed to walk in with security," she said. "I was supposed to make this look like an extraction." Then she gets her conversation, off record, on her terms. She gets to decide who leaves this room breathing. Marcus's jaw clenched. "And you decided to change the script." Sarah's mouth tightened. "I decided to let the script record itself," she said, and her gaze flicked to the cassette, to the blinking red light that did not care about titles or fear. The phone speaker clicked. A soft sound, almost polite, as if someone had tapped a nail on glass. Then Patricia Sterling's voice poured into the room, smooth and warm, the way expensive knives look under soft lighting. "I dislike doors that break," Patricia said. "It tells me someone inside thought they were safe." Sarah's face went still, controlled, a mask snapping back into place. "You are on speaker, Miss Sterling," she said. "Of course I am," Patricia replied, and there was a faint smile in the syllables. "I prefer an audience. Witnesses behave better when they are reminded they can be heard." Marcus's eyes moved from the phone to Sarah, to the shadowed man. "Nobody moved," Patricia continued, unhurried, almost conversational. "Sarah, you were instructed to bring me confirmation, not theater." Sarah's fingers curled once, then relaxed beside her thigh. "You wanted his voice," she said. "You have it." A pause. Then Patricia's tone shifted, not louder, just colder, like a room losing heat. "Put him closer to the phone." The man's tremor returned, more visible now, his hand fighting his own body. He did not stand. He leaned forward a fraction, staying half inside the dark, half in the lamp's edge. Patricia's voice softened again, falsely kind. "Hello," she said. "It has been a long time since you owed me." The man's throat worked. "You do not get to say hello," he replied. Patricia laughed once, quietly. Oh, I get to say whatever survives, she said. That is the point, is it not? Marcus felt his pulse beat in his ears, and the tape hiss suddenly seemed louder, like the recorder was leaning in too. Patricia's voice slid on. You hid well, she said. In a room without a name. But rooms have doors, and doors have keys, and keys have people. People have appetites. Sarah's eyes flicked to Marcus, a warning without words. Patricia continued, and now the sweetness was gone entirely. You are going to tell me what you gave him, she said. You are going to tell me where the copies are, and then I will decide how generous I feel about the people in that room. Marcus's fingers pressed against the inside pocket of his jacket, touching the photograph like a pulse check. Patricia paused again, as if listening for the smallest crack in their silence. Then she said, almost casually, Williams is there too, isn't he? Marcus's stomach dropped, not because she guessed, but because she said it like she could see him. Sarah's face tightened. Do not say his name, she warned, voice low. Patricia ignored her. I want him on the line, Patricia said. I want to hear if he still believes in dignity, or if hunger finally taught him arithmetic. Marcus took one step forward, stopping at the edge of the lamp's circle. He did not look at Sarah. He did not look at the man. He looked at the phone like it was a mouth that could bite. He spoke evenly, not loud, not pleading. You kept listening because you are scared, Marcus said. People who are winning do not need to eavesdrop. For the first time, Patricia's silence lasted a beat too long. Then her voice returned, softer than before, and that softness was the sharpest thing in the room. Marcus, she said, tasting his name. You sound like someone who thinks he can choose what happens next. The cassette recorder's red light blinked on, steady, immortal. And somewhere beyond the walls, boots stopped running, as if the building itself had paused to listen. The boots outside did not rush the door. They circled it, slow and patient, like predators that already knew the room had only one exit. Sarah held up one finger, not a command, a promise. She slid her palm under the black phone and turned it face down again, smothering Patricia's voice. The silence that followed felt illegal. Marcus watched the cassette recorder, that steady, blinking red, and understood the simplest truth. The only thing power cannot argue with. If it is recorded, it can survive. The man in the chair leaned forward, the tremor in his hand turning into something sharper, a tremor of decision. He reached under the desk and pulled free a thin, battered folder, edges soft from years of hiding. He did not hand it to Marcus yet. He held it like it weighed as much as his ribs. They are not coming to talk, he whispered. They are coming to erase. A soft click came from the door, then another, the sound of a tool finding purchase. Sarah's eyes cut to the corner of the room, to a narrow panel in the wall that looked like nothing, paint over screws, a seam too straight to be accidental. She crossed to it and pressed 2 points, fast, muscle memory. The panel shifted with a reluctant sigh. Behind it, a dark service crawl, old and dusty, air colder than the hallway, like the building kept a second set of lungs. Marcus stared. You knew. Sarah did not look at him. I built the schedules that keep the cameras clean, she said. I learned where the blind spots live. The man's breathing hitched. I cannot run, he murmured. You do not have to, Sarah said, and for the first time her voice warmed, just enough to sound like a person, not a professional. You just have to move. The boots outside stopped. A voice, muffled through the door, low and flat. Open it. Marcus felt the old instinct rise, the one that had kept him employed by staying small. Make yourself nothing. Let the world pass over you. But the folder in the man's hand was not nothing, and the blink of the recorder was not nothing, and the weight in Marcus's inner pocket was not nothing. He reached for the cassette recorder and slid it toward his jacket, careful, gentle, like touching a sleeping animal. The man flinched. Keep it on, Marcus whispered. The man's eyes locked on his, frightened and fierce at once. He nodded. Sarah stepped into the crawl first, half her body disappearing into the dark. She looked back, finally meeting Marcus's gaze, and in it was a warning and a dare. When they ask who you are, she said, do not answer like a waiter. Answer like the building belongs to you. Metal scraped at the lock again, louder, angrier. Marcus moved. He guided the man to the opening, one hand under his elbow, supporting more than weight, supporting the moment. The man's tremoring fingers pressed the folder into Marcus's palm at the last second. "If I do not make it," the man whispered, "tell him I did not break." Marcus tightened his grip on the folder. "You are going to tell him yourself," he said. Sarah reached back and helped pull the man into the crawl. Dust rose in a slow cloud, glittering in the lamplight like old ash. The door handle jerked, hard. Marcus turned to the desk, to the black phone, face down, still alive. He did not pick it up. He slid it across the wood, nudging it closer to the cassette recorder's microphone, close enough to let Patricia hear the hiss of tape and the thin edge of truth. Then he pressed the record button again, deliberately, a small click that felt louder than the boots. The lock gave way. The door swung inward, and the room filled with bodies and black fabric and clipped breath. A flashlight beam cut across the desk, across the lamp, across the empty chair, then snapped to Marcus like a hook. A security lead stepped in, broad, confident, the kind of man who never had to learn the difference between force and authority. His eyes flicked to Marcus's badge, to the desk, to the panel that was now closed again, nearly invisible. He smiled without warmth. "You are lost," he said. Marcus did not look down at his own clothes. He looked past the man, as if he was already late for a meeting that mattered more than this entire hallway. "I am exactly where I was told to be," Marcus said, calm, bored, the tone of someone paid to ignore interruptions. "Move." The security lead hesitated, just a fraction. People like him could smell fear easily. They struggled with a person who refused to offer it. The flashlight beam wobbled, then steadied again, searching for something to confirm the story it wanted. The black phone vibrated once, low and heavy, a heartbeat on wood. The security lead's gaze snapped to it, and Marcus saw the hunger behind his eyes, not for justice, for approval. The lead reached toward the phone. Marcus lifted 2 fingers, not touching him, not pleading, just stopping the moment by refusing it permission. "Do not," Marcus said. The room stilled. Even the flashlight beam seemed to pause. From the phone, Patricia's voice slipped through, soft, amused, deadly. "Let him touch it, Marcus," she purred. "I want to hear what kind of man he is." Marcus kept his 2 fingers raised, and his face did not change. "You already know," he said. "That is why you hired him." The security lead's smile collapsed. Patricia laughed quietly, then her tone sharpened like a blade turned toward Sarah's absence. "Where is she?" Patricia asked. Marcus said nothing. Patricia's voice lowered, intimate, as if only Marcus could hear. "You are holding something you do not understand," she said. "You think a recording is a weapon. It is not. It is a leash, and I know how to pull." The lights flickered once, a brief dimming that made every shadow jump. Marcus felt the building shift, not physically, psychologically, like a huge machine deciding whether to protect its own. He pressed his thumb to the edge of the battered folder in his pocket and found a folded card inside it, stiff with age. A single line was typed on it, plain, final, like a verdict. "If you hear this, the dead zone is no longer dead." The lights flickered again, longer this time, and the cassette recorder kept blinking, patient, red, and alive. The lights did not fully die. They stuttered, like the building was choking on its own oxygen. The security lead's flashlight snapped up toward the ceiling, then back to Marcus, hungry for a target that could make the flicker make sense. His men shifted, hands close to their belts, listening for orders or permission. Patricia's voice breathed through the black phone, calm as a knife laid flat on skin. "You want to be brave," she said. "Be brave, out loud." Marcus let the silence answer first. He reached to the desk, slow enough to look harmless, and slid the cassette recorder closer, aligning it with the phone the way you align a witness with a microphone. The red light blinked, steady, stubborn. The security lead lunged half a step. Marcus did not flinch. He tapped the recorder lightly, 2 knuckles, a small dry sound. That sound traveled, because the room was built to hold secrets, not absorb them. Patricia's voice sharpened. "Turn it off." Marcus looked at the security lead, not at the phone, and spoke like he was talking to a man who still believed he had choices. "If she can order you from a phone," he said, "you are not security. You are furniture." The lead's jaw tightened. His eyes betrayed him, flicking to the phone again, like a dog checking for its master. From the crawl space behind the painted panel came a faint scrape, a whispered movement, careful and slow. Sarah's plan was working, but plans did not matter if Marcus broke before the last bolt slid into place. He reached into his inner pocket and pulled out the folded card, held it up to the flashlight beam without offering it to anyone. The words stared back, plain and cold. Patricia laughed softly, as if reading over his shoulder. "You found his little poetry," she said. "A dead man trying to be relevant." Marcus's throat tightened, not with grief, with rage that refused to be dramatic. He unfolded the card once more, and something else fell from it. A thin strip of magnetic tape, old and worn, a relic from a time before everything was cloud and convenience. The man with the tremor had not just hidden paper, he had hidden a voice. Patricia's breath hitched, the smallest fracture. "Do not play that," she snapped. The security lead looked confused, and confusion was the first crack in authority. Marcus set the strip beside the cassette recorder. His hands moved with the calm of someone who has carried hot plates through crowded aisles, trained to keep steady even when the world swerves. He pressed a button. The room filled with a hiss, then a voice, male, tired, controlled, and unmistakably alive in a way no report could erase. "If you are hearing this," the voice said, "then the system failed to bury me. That means you are standing where they told everyone I never stood." Patricia went silent. The security lead stared at the recorder like it had grown teeth. The voice continued, measured, not pleading, not heroic, just factual, the kind of truth that survives because it refuses performance. "I logged the transfers under a shadow tag," the voice said. "Not for revenge, for insurance. If you touch the wrong wire, it plays. If you open the wrong door, it sends. If you are listening now, you are close." Marcus felt his heart pound against the old badge hidden over his chest. The building's flicker became a rhythm, an alarm without a siren. Patricia's voice returned, lower now, intimate, dangerous. "Marcus," she said, "you do not understand what you are holding. That voice is a trigger. The moment it moves, the moment it leaves that room, a lot of people will die to keep it quiet." Marcus met the security lead's eyes again and spoke gently, which somehow sounded crueler. "She did not say you will die," he said. "She said people. You are included in people." The lead swallowed. He glanced behind him, at his men, at the door, at the hallway that suddenly felt very far away. From the phone came a new sound, not a voice, a tone, a clean electronic confirmation. Then another. Sarah's voice slipped in, tight but clear, coming through the same line like she had forced her way into Patricia's world. "It is live," Sarah said. "The packet is out. The dead zone is talking." Patricia's silence was heavier than her threats. The security lead stepped back, one pace, then another, as if distance could undo what he had just heard. His hand hovered over the recorder, unsure if destroying it would save him or damn him. Marcus leaned forward, close enough that only the lead could hear. "You can still be a man," Marcus said, "or you can be her tool. Tools get thrown away when they get noisy." Patricia spoke again, but the smoothness was gone now, replaced by something raw, almost offended. "You think you have won?" she hissed. "You have only opened the door." Marcus looked at the black phone, face down, vibrating like a trapped animal. He did not pick it up. He let it scream against the wood, unheard. He reached into the battered folder and pulled out one last page, a printed access ledger, old ink, familiar initials, and a signature line that made the air in his lungs turn to ice. Not Patricia's signature. Richard's. Marcus held it up, letting the flashlight catch the name, letting the security lead see it too. The lead's eyes widened, because betrayal was always more frightening when it wore a friendly face. From somewhere deeper in the building, far below, a mechanical rumble began, like an elevator starting a private descent. Sarah's voice came again, urgent now. "They are moving someone," she said. "They are taking him downstairs." Marcus's gaze stayed locked on the signature until the paper stopped shaking in his fingers. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, almost gentle. "Then we go down," he said. And for the first time since this room tried to swallow him, the building sounded afraid,